Hello there, and welcome back to The Snail Patrol by Krista Lacey, and I'm going to read you Chapter 7. Where to keep 67 disgruntled snails. That was Darren's immediate problem as he kicked off his wellies on the kitchen step. It seemed a bit cruel to leave them squashed up in jars. They looked like a lot of hard-boiled sweets, and they were probably gasping for air by now. Darren decided he needed a box with little air holes and a fairly tight lid, a box that a big snail couldn't bite their way through. A bread bin seemed like the perfect answer. Darren sneaked into the kitchen and pushed back the lid. There was half a loaf of bread and 2 scones in the bin. He put the loaf on the breadboard and wolfed the scones down. And then, thinking the snails might be hungry, he tiptoed stealthily over to the fridge and found an old limp lettuce in the crisper compartment. He tore a few yellowed leaves into snail-sized pieces and spread the bits out on the bottom of the bread bin. Then he grabbed a jar. "Come on," he whispered to a dozy cream topper. "Tea time. Look." He held the jar over the feast of lettuce. The snail, being a snail, barely managed to slither. Suddenly, from the front room, Darren heard his mother's voice. "Don't turn over, Dad. I want to watch the weather." Darren bit his lip. He had to work fast. Mum liked a cup of tea after listening to the weather, and in another 5 minutes she would be in the kitchen. "Come on," he said again to his sleepy prisoners, and poked the snails out with the flat of a knife. It was a close-run thing. He'd just managed to put all the things back in the garage, wash his face and hands, take his parka off, when his mum came striding into the kitchen. "Oh, there you are at last. The explorer returns. And how was your nature ramble then?" "Nature study," Darren corrected her, nudging past. "Excuse me," Mrs. Winterburn huffed. "And how did your nature study go then? Find anything interesting in Mr. Macduff's garden apart from the usual clumps of mud?" "No," muttered Darren, and started up the stairs. "Just a minute," said his mother, in that slow, commanding tone that always turned Darren's spine to ice. He rested his head on the nearest riser and clawed at the fraying edges of the carpet. "I'm not a mind reader, Darren. Do you want hot chocolate or fruit juice tonight?" Darren sighed with relief. His bedtime drink. "Chocolate, please. Can I have it in bed?" "I suppose so," said his mother. "Do you want a scone with it? I think there might be 1 or 2 left in the—" "No!" gasped Darren, and covered his ears. It was awesome. Mrs. Winterburn screamed so loud that the plaster flaked off the kitchen ceiling. "Darren!" she thundered. "Get in here!" Darren inched towards the kitchen. His mother was livid. "What are those things doing in my bread bin?" Darren hung his head. Resting?" he suggested. That wasn't a good answer. "Resting? You'll be resting across my knee." Darren shuffled his feet, and suddenly his jeans felt remarkably thin. "Right," said his mother, pushing up her sleeves. "First, you put those squidgers back exactly where you found them, and then you scrub every inch of this worktop until it shines so much the sun needn't bother coming up in the morning." "But I can't, Mum." "What?" "I can't put 'em back." Darren bit his lip. There was no way round it. He'd have to tell his mother the truth. He took a deep gulp and gabbled the story out. "So I have to keep them, Mum, and measure them properly, or Mr. Macduff won't give me any money." "Clever," said his dad, who'd come into the kitchen when he'd heard the fuss. "Catching snails for cash, eh? Wish I'd thought of that when I was in the Scouts." Mrs. Winterburn gave Dad a frosty glare. "Dib, dib, dib," Mr. Winterburn said. "Shows initiative if you want my opinion." "Well, I don't," said his wife, and she turned to face Darren. "I've never heard anything so harebrained in my life. I don't care how much money you're owed, lad. Those snails are going in the garden. Now." "But what if they climb up Mr. Macduff's wall?" "Darren, I don't care if they climb up your trouser leg and lay their eggs in your underpants. Get them out of my kitchen, this instant." Mrs. Winterburn pointed fiercely at the door, and with a defeated sigh, Darren hoisted the bread bin off the worktop, walked to the door, and yanked it open. "And another thing," Mrs. Winterburn snapped. Darren teetered on the kitchen step. "You can throw that bread bin away when you've finished. We won't be needing it any more." "What?" thought Darren. "Chuck out the bread bin? Does that mean no more bread, ever? No more sugar sandwiches? No more beans on toast? No more soldiers for his hard-boiled eggs? Surely his mum couldn't be so cruel." But Mrs. Winterburn hadn't quite finished. "Because on Saturday morning, you and I are going into town and you're going to buy me a new, brand new bread bin." Darren blinked, confused. "I haven't got any money, Mum." "Oh, yes, you have. You've got the Christmas money that Auntie Alison gave you." "But, Mum," Darren whipped round. He was going to put that money towards a pair of trainers and a Manchester United football jersey. "Go," said his mother, pointing towards the garden. "Oh," Darren stamped and kicked the door wide, and behind him something crashed to the floor. "And you can add an egg timer to the list as well," Mrs. Winterburn thundered through the kitchen window. That was it. Darren decided grown-ups were rotten. They only existed to make his life a misery. He was sure they kept a secret plan somewhere. Get Darren. That's probably what it said. Parents' master plan. Objective number 1, get Darren. Objective number 2, see objective number 1. Well, he was going to get his own back. That much was certain. No one swizzled him out of his Christmas money. He mooched down the garden with the bread bin tucked underneath his arm, and thoughts of revenge piling up in his mind. Where had Dad planted those geranium flowers? The ones they'd bought for Mother's Day. If he tipped the snails out there, they would eat the geraniums, and Mum couldn't complain because it was her idea. She'd be sorry when all she had was stalks in the morning. "And don't be all night," bellowed his mum from the kitchen. Darren stuck his tongue out, but got a move on anyway. It was cold, and the rain was drizzling in his face. He squelched across the lawn to the flower bed nearest the garden pond. To his dismay, there was nothing but wet earth and pebbles in the bed, not so much as a single leaf. He frowned and kicked a plastic gnome into the pond. "Are you done?" yelled his mother. "No," Darren yelled back, looking around. There had to be somewhere decent for the snails. And then he saw it. A gap in the fence. A football-sized hole in the wooden slats. "Come on," he told the snails, "you're going on a holiday." And one by one, he dropped them through the hole into Mrs. Dumpty's vegetable plot at number 6, Poddledown Crescent. And that's the end of chapter 7, and there'll be more coming very soon. Bye-bye now.